Hi, I'm Michelle Bigger, and this is what's happening in Latin America now. But first, our news trivia. Which of these well-known Mexican cities elected its first female mayor? We'll have the answer later. Brazil is facing a critical situation as this week it surpassed 500,000 deaths due to COVID. Brazil has the second largest death toll in the world after the United States. But health experts say the situation could get worse as vaccinations roll out slowly in the South American country. Only 11% of adults are fully vaccinated in Brazil. Street protests were held across the country, demanding more vaccines and a better immunization plan. Paraguay's prosecutor's office is investigating President Mario Abdo Benitez and his government on its handling of the pandemic. The lawyers requesting the investigation have asked for clarification on how the $1.6 billion worth of funds that were intended to battle the pandemic were spent. Paraguay has recorded the world's highest daily proportion of COVID deaths, with 18 deaths per 1 million inhabitants. The Aymara indigenous celebrated the Andean New Year on Monday. Bolivian President Luis Arce participated in rituals at the archaeological complex of Tiwanaku. The celebration marks the beginning of a new agricultural cycle and the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. In Mexico, climate change may be responsible for the loss of bees. That is what one beehive collective is investigating. The Apis mellifera species is used to producing 55,900 tons of honey for Mexico on average. In 2020, that number fell 35%. And according to experts, chemicals like pesticides and insecticides could be found responsible, along with climate change. A beekeeping group called Black Bees in Mexico is trying to save the bees from these chemicals. The all-female collective wants to break stereotypes in what is usually a male-dominated sector.
No es cierto que las mujeres no nada más estamos como para hacer cosas delicadas, sino que también podemos hacer cosas pues más rudas, ¿no? Y podemos aportar y ayudar.
And now let's go to Joel Richards, who has news about Argentina's debt with the IMF and how it affects everyday citizens.
The latest we have on this saga are off-the-record comments from IMF officials who now expect negotiations to continue into 2022. Argentina wants to delay and extend repayments on the $45 billion loan which was made under the previous government of Mauricio Macri. That loan was the largest in IMF history and it failed to help lift the country out of recession. In the context of the social and economic impact of the pandemic, Argentina's government has increased social spending, a fiscal policy that historically the IMF has not supported. There's still a long way to go with these negotiations, but Argentina's stance is clear. President Alberto Fernandez has said on several occasions that under the current agreement, the debt is unpayable.
And now let's look at what stories we're following for next week. First, Chile is getting ready to begin drafting its new constitution next month. President Sebastián Piñera says the assembly will hold its first session on July 4th to replace the current conservative constitution. 155 elected citizens will be in charge of putting it together over the next 9 months. The final draft will be voted on in a national referendum next year. Second, Colombia is on the verge of enforcing a life sentence for condemned child rapists. The Senate approved the regulation last week. Now the president has to sanction it, but it's already causing controversy and lawyers are demanding it be discarded. Those against the measure argue Colombia is not accustomed to life sentences and that the decision would not help solve child abuse in any way. The constitutional courts, who would have the final say, will most likely not get to review it until next year. And third, a judge dismissed a prosecutor's request to send Peruvian presidential candidate Keiko Fujimori back to jail. She's already spent 15 months in prison. She was accused of taking money from the Brazilian Odebrecht. Fujimori launched an appeal after the results were announced. She alleges fraud by opponent schoolteacher Pedro Castillo. We'll know the official results in the following days. If she loses, she will have to face trial immediately, and if she is found guilty, she could serve up to 30 years. And now the answer to our news trivia, it's C. Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo is the first elected female mayor of Mexico City. The political post is considered the second most important after the president. Sheinbaum herself has not held any traditional political titles, but she holds degrees in physics and energy engineering and did her doctoral studies in Berkeley, California. She also took part in the United Nations Climate Change panel that shared the Nobel Peace Prize with Al Gore. And that's it for this week. We'll see you again soon on Latin America Now.